r/AskReddit. Teachers of Reddit, what's the saddest thing you've heard a student say? Did a pretty standard scale drawing project where students measured and drew their bedrooms. A student drew squares along the walls, and when I asked what they were, he said they were the stove and refrigerator. Kid was sleeping in the kitchen. Telling me I'm more of a mother to them than their mother. I had a few of those through the years. If it is okay with you, could you say what it is that you do? I had expectations for them. I pushed them to do better. I made sure they had breakfast. I listened to their worries. I spent a lot of time with them. They were special needs kids. Many had abusive, druggy, alcoholic, neglectful, etc. parents, or any combination of those. My mom told me she didn't pack lunch because it was too expensive. Gave him my lunch. Or, that's what my principal did to one of my students. No one likes him. He wants everyone to grow up and have a bright future. I'm starting to miss him reading this. I remember when a girl in our class told the teacher it didn't matter if they learned it, she was going to be dead in a couple of years anyways. At the time I told my mom, and she said the girl was probably just being dramatic, but the girl didn't come back after summer break. A second grader told me that he was feeling weird and tired that day because he didn't sleep much the night before because people were shooting each other on his street, and his dad went out to see what was happening and didn't come back until morning. He was so worried he hadn't slept at all. Another student told me he couldn't take his ADHD medicine because his mommy sold it for food. If I don't get a 90 in your class, my dad won't let me see my mom. I was only sort of a teacher for 1 year. I worked at one of the national laboratories in the Bay Area, and as outreach we gave 2 science lessons each to all the schools in Oakland and Berkeley. On lesson 2 in one of the Oakland schools, from a 10-year-old girl who was clearly having trouble paying attention. Sorry I wasn't here last time. My dad got shot. My sister had a kid in kindergarten have a big breakdown seeing all the food getting thrown away after lunch on the first day. He had a bunch of siblings at home, and they were all hungry. It's the first time my sister cried at work. CPS was called and stuff happened. Food waste is a serious problem. Why do people keep throwing food away when they know other people in this world are starving? I don't mean those last few beans on your plate that you're too full to eat. I'm talking about the enormous quantity of food thrown away by companies because the foods weren't sold or didn't look normal while those foods were actually completely fine to eat. It really makes me angry. Many years ago I was teaching in a private school for children with emotional impairment and behavioral difficulties. I had a 6-year-old boy in class that had an upcoming court date about his rape by his mother's boyfriend. The rape happened when he was 4 years old. He looked at me with intensity and asked, "Do you think that the judge would let go into rapist's cell and beat him up? I'm so much bigger now, and I have been practicing. Oh, and after, could I live with you? Because my mom wants to live with him when he gets out of jail and I won't be able to live there anymore." Not me, but a friend of mine is an elementary school teacher and she came to school extremely hungover one time. It was only once, and I'm sure there were reasons. She's a good, motivated and responsible teacher. One of the children smiled and hugged her, saying, "Mrs. King, you smell like my dad." I'm sorry, I didn't take my meds today because mom sold them again. And is it okay if I stay in your room for lunch? We don't have any food in the house. I bought that kid bread, peanut butter, jelly and some snacks, and he made lunches and dinners for himself and his brother. I cried every night during that school year. Edit to add, thank you for unexpected gold. A lot of heavy stuff in this thread, but he made lunches and dinners for himself, and his brother really got to me. Thanks for looking out for these kids. As a community college peer tutor, I've heard too many kids and adults tell me about their depression, anxiety, addiction, and bullying. For some reason one kid stuck with me. He told me about his autism and his love for writing movie scripts. He said, "I know they're not very good, so my dad always reads them and helps edit them." It was sad hearing him beat himself up about something he loved, but nice to hear that his dad always takes the time to go through long scripts with him often. Props to that dad for being there and encouraging his son. I'm a freaking idiot. The young man had just received his scores on his ACT They weren't good, and he felt his dream of being a police officer were over. The kid is 17. Just go his life rammed by a stupid ass test. It makes my blood boil how much stock we put into the damn test. He's a joy to have in class, spent all of his lunches with me going over content he didn't understand, is well liked, works 40 hours a week, is a productive member of society, and is just an overall good kid. And a damn test says he's not good enough. I have two from the same open university in an economically depressed area. First, with tears, can I please turn in my paper next week instead of next class, because my brother just got convicted and they are asking for the death penalty. Poor kid. That's a hell of a lot to handle at 18. Second, this was an essay on the topic of why are you here? The student, an older woman in a freshman comp class, wrote that she'd had her kids at a young age, and now that they were grown, she wanted to show them that she could still make something of herself. And even though her husband told her that he would leave her if she went to college, she came anyway. Thank God it was a diagnostic essay, because how the hell would you grade that? I just wanted to cheer and hug her. Not me, but wife. A couple years ago a grade 3 kid whose birthday was coming up was saying how he didn't deserve a birthday, that he was a speck of dirt, that he was bad. It took a while, but my wife was able to figure out that when he was in grade 1 and at his birthday celebrations, his dad stabbed his mom. He had internalized this into somehow being his fault because it happened on his birthday. It was his fault that his dad was in jail and that his mom was so severely injured that she could no longer work. It was his fault that they had to move into a much smaller place. Really tough to hear. Kids should not have to deal with this shit. That's the thing with abuse. The child doesn't stop loving their parents, they stop loving themselves. Heard just last week from behavioral/emotional support student. IA, me, wow. That's a pretty good score. Great job. Student, yeah, but I got % wrong. Mom's not gonna be happy about that. IA, but this is honestly a good score for you. It's over half. Student, I know. But whenever I tell her I got like 20 out of 30, my mom always says, but you still got 10 wrong. And I'm like screaming in my head, why can't you be happy for me for finally getting a good grade? IA, heartbreaking. Well, if she won't say it, I will. This is an awesome score for you. I mean, this is a brand new concept the teacher just introduced today, and you rocked out this score after only hearing it once. You did rockin' awesome. The little smile they gave at that. Ugh, just killed me. While working in a youth shelter as a counselor, had one of my teens tell me that she was one of 5 to 6 kids her mom had, but all of the other kids lived with mom. My mom just can't afford all of us right now, so basically this girl lost the lottery and became the one in shelter/foster system, but she'll come back for me when she's back on track. Now this was a 14 to 15 year old, but had some cognitive delays and was more like a 8-year-old mentally, socially. She was a sweet kid. It was so sad on so many levels. This was about 2 or 3 years back, not a teacher, but a student who sat next to the sad kid who told the teacher after class that he was being bullied by the jocks who sit near us, and he wanted his seat to be moved across the room away from them. She told him that it wasn't her problem, that he was having issues with students outside of school and couldn't change his seat because it would mess up the whole classroom attendance order. As someone who was severely bullied for nearly 7 years, I know just how shady that kid feels, so I'll let him sit in my spot for the rest of the year because it was just slightly further away from the bullies. And best of all, the teacher never realized, so that whole attendance order shit was completely false. She just didn't care enough to do anything about him. What a sad place this is. Preschool/kindergarten teacher assistant here. There is this one little boy who has always been rowdy. We'll call him Zach. Doesn't listen to instructions and sometimes is a hassle. I've always wondered about his family life because he tends to say wildly inappropriate things. A few weeks ago, I caught him saying I'm Zach and no one loves me. I go over and tell him that isn't true at all. He then starts talking about death and how all kittens should be killed during nighttime. Eerie as hell. Not regular teacher, but teach self-defense. Had a trial student ask me, can you make sure I don't get gangbaped again? Not a great day for me. You have been visited by Mr. Doggo. Subscribe and leave like to have luck for the next 10 years.